Hey everyone, Dr. Kuniak here with a video lecture. This week's theme is associated with multicultural and ethical implications associated with conducting research. I wanted to give you kind of a brief supplemental video lecture to um, just have something to say beyond the discussion board and uh, your textbook and all that sort of stuff. Um, Research is a very interesting topic to me. Certainly, if we've talked before, you know about my scholarly interests and stuff like that. I think research is such a the idea of research in the field of counseling is such a unique animal because it's both the same and different from what we do every day. You're able to interpret and assess really well. Like that's part of your job as a counselor. And yet, when we're conducting scholarly research, we become we have to kind of funnel all of that focus into a series of rules because in the end, it's difficult to make claims, unbiased claims about what it is that we're trying to put out there into the literature when all we're relying on is our own observations. So research is kind of a fascinating animal like that to me because we need it in our field. It's so important to the work that we do, and yet I find that many counselors don't actually like to engage in scholarly research. So I wanted to take a moment to kind of talk about that. I feel like at the beginning of a course like this, it's helpful to talk about what you can do and what you can't do, what you're qualified to do, why we even teach a course on research when most of this program is based around clinical skills. The ACA Code of Ethics has an entire section on research and publication. So, as a result, we can presume that counselors are qualified to do research and publication. But I've talked to a lot of master's students who don't think that, or we're not aware. Let me frame it that way, that they could publish and that they could be a part of publication. Journals don't typically have a requirement that says you have to have a PhD or a PsyD or an EdD or anything like that to be able to publish. They do ask that you have some sort of I won't say that they all do, but many of them require some sort of an ethics training. So, like the city training that you're doing for this class would be one of those. That's actually kind of the benchmark training that I am aware of. But a lot of counselors don't engage in research and publication. Some of that is related to feeling like research has to be, grant funded, supported by a university, has to be done in a really expensive sort of format. And that can be the case sometimes. It can be helpful to have a grant to take time off to be able to do all the work that goes along with producing a really high quality clinical research paper. But it's not required. Two of the papers that I'm working on right now had required zero financial backing for me to be able to do. One of them I did have to go to a conference because that's how I designed it, and so there was some cost associated with that, but it was really just the cost for me to be able to set up a table and and be present at the conference and gather that data. The other study that I'm doing had no cost whatsoever. It's more of a theoretical paper, and so I did a lot of my own digging into the literature and asking folks specific questions and things of that sort. Online methods have become even more popular. If you have a decent audience, you can gather a lot of data very easily. I guess that's kind of a cost sort of thing, but it does not require a lot of financial backing. So I'm part of an editorial board of reviewers for two journals. One is more active than the other, and so I do a lot of I actually just got a new paper to review today. I do a lot of reviewing for the Journal of the Pennsylvania Counseling Association, for example, which is published twice a year, and a surprising number of clinicians, non-academics, publish in that journal, which is great. I find their research to be much more um, I'm always searching for words, cutting edge, for lack of better words. They're the ones who are working in the field, and they're the ones who are trying out new stuff with their clients. And so I think that they have a really great voice to be able to produce research. And yet, I think broadly across the journals, we don't get a lot of that voice. So it's kind of nice to read studies from folks that are practicing. There's one particular group, it's always blind review, so I have no idea who they are, but I know they're working in a corrections institution in Western Pennsylvania because that's where the data is always coming from. They've published some really they've had some articles that they've submitted get published, and they're really interesting articles about work they're doing in this particular institution. So as you consider, I do think it's important to review the Code of Ethics. There's a lot of focus on informed consent. Clients need to know, so research subjects need to know how their information is being gathered, what it's being used for, where it's going to be stored, and where it's going. That's the same as what we would have to do with clients. Like, we store information for our clients, but you have to do the same thing for your research subjects, and they need to know how that's going to look at the start. So a good quality informed consent form that has to be approved through an institutional review board is really required to do ethical research. I am currently shredding a whole lot of research documents as I look to my side here. I had done a paper and pencil test assessment years ago for a study that I had done, and I was required by the IRB that I worked through, which was through Duquesne University. They required me to sign a statement that said that I would hold on to this data for at least 7 years. And so I have been holding on to it for all of these years. And so it occurred to me about a year or so ago, I could really scan all those binders, and I'm still holding on to the data, and I can get rid of all these paper forms. So that's one of my current projects, is getting rid of all of this paper, but I need to shred it. I need to make sure that none of that data is lost or missing. The USB drive that I'm saving all of these images onto is password protected and encrypted, because I had said that I would secure the data. That was a part of my informed consent procedure, and so I have to. Clients need, or I keep saying clients, participants need to be able to find their way out of, to exit a research study at any point with no consequence to them. That's part of the informed consent procedure too, as to how they can do that. We need to keep in mind from a multicultural perspective that as we're gathering this data, first off, we need to be culturally sensitive to the informed consent process. So if folks need an interpreter to be able to do the study, we have to provide that. That's a consideration for study design in advance. We also have to consider that whenever you publish research, you want to make sure that you list, so you have to ask this in the first place, you list what all the populations you worked with were, because the results that you put forward, if it was a predominantly Caucasian population, that's part of the interpretation of the results. So that doesn't mean that study information is useless with any other population. It just means that then when the clinician who reads this article later looks at the study, they know what this population sample looked like, and so they can make some educated interpretations of the results and see if it's something that they can use with their perhaps varying cultured client. All stuff that you have to think about in the research design and in how you kind of prepare this work and in how you inform the client. It's not stuff that a lot of practicing counselors think about, but it's really not that different in its start, in its infancy, than how we think about how we structure the work that we're doing with our clients. So I do hope you take a look at, you have to for the discussion board this week, but I do hope you take a look at the Code of Ethics and consider all of these little features that go into the creation of a study and how to make our research ethical. Hope this was helpful. I'm grateful to be able to talk to you in an asynchronous class like this. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, concerns. I will see you all in the discussion board otherwise. And take care, and I'll talk to you soon.